What is good, demons? We're back. I'm going to react to this because it was a conversation with Cuban, who I actually like more Cuban. There are some things that I obviously disagree with when it comes to it, but I do think he's one of the few billionaires that I'm like, this guy probably is a good guy, like, or at the very least, as good as you can be for being a billionaire, right? Or millionaire. I don't know what he is. And then we got Tucker Carlson. Hey, Tucker Carlson. So I want to react to this to see how this conversation would go. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I reply to every single comment so we can have a conversation. I'm going to try to proliferate that more on this channel. All right, let's dive right into it. Will I be eating? Yes. Will you hate it? Please don't.
If it is about wages, if it is about affording a home, let's put the political parties aside. What's the path forward, Mark, Tucker, of maybe letting the bottom third believe in America again? Should we raise the minimum wage? Do we need to have a Manhattan Project to do something as easy as building?
Is it even the bottom third? I feel like at this point, it's like the other 70%. I low-key would go higher.
5 million homes. I mean, we live in the great state of Texas. They build homes like you wouldn't believe. And rents have gone down in Texas 3 years in a row. I mean, there are solutions to these problems. What should we solve for as a country? Politics aside, if we had a top 2 or 3 things, what do we need to solve, Mark? And then Tucker, same for you.
I think we've forgotten about entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's one of the challenges of the tariffs, that we hear about $500 billion investment, $600 billion investment, $2 trillion or whatever in aggregate investment, but we don't talk about the 10% effective or 15 or 20% effective tariffs and the impact on small businesses, and not just from the actual tariffs per se, but from the friction that they create for the companies trying to run their companies, right?
He is correct about this. Now, is that a major issue in terms of like reviving American hope, so to speak? I've talked about this, funny enough, on my podcast, the last 2 episodes. Now, you guys can find the video version now on YouTube, so I post the video versions. You can listen to the audio versions on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whatever you choose. But in the first conversation 2 weeks ago, I talked about the American dream in regards to immigration. And then the last episode, I talked about the American dream in regards to more like nationalized Americans, people who were born here. And in both retrospects, there is something going on with society that is ruining the American dream. And this is another aspect of the American dream that I don't think gets talked about a lot. And that is, well, the idea of making a life for yourself does get talked about a lot. The more particular thing that he's referring to is the idea of being your own boss, being your own business owner. And that is kind of getting skewed with the addition of like 1099s and social media. So I'm curious if I would have a long, in-depth conversation with Mark Cuban to see how he believes entrepreneurship has shifted from like your normal owning of a business in the traditional sense, where it's like a physical location potentially. A lot of that has been shifting to more online independence. And I don't know if that's a good thing. But one thing we both can agree on is that tariffs has made it harder for a lot of Americans. We've seen examples and clips, I'm sure you've seen on social media, of Donald Trump supporters talking about how the tariffs have ruined their business and now they can't afford the goods that they're importing to give it to their customers.
Like for my Shark Tank companies, it's put several out of business. And when you hear the president talk about them, I understand he's trying to work on a macro basis. That's what he's trying to do. That's fine. But for, there's 33 million companies, 30 million of them are solopreneurs. There's only 22,000 companies that have 500 or more employees. 60% of new jobs are created by small companies. I think they're being ignored. And to your point, if he's able to reduce friction in terms of zoning, in terms of anything else that makes it more difficult to run, whether it's using AI or whatever it may be, then I think the American spirit takes over, right? You guys are entrepreneurs, you're an entrepreneur, you know that, the ideas are there. The people who want to implement those ideas are what makes this country. You can go around the world and they don't talk about the French dream, the Houthi dream. They talk about the American
By the way, over
dream.
lunch, the French government collapsed, I understand.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But they talk about the American dream. That's what makes this country great. That's what makes this country different. And I think for a long time,
They talk about the American dream that used to exist. It doesn't exist anymore. This is something that if you're MAGA, you should have been, you at the very least can agree with me, right? We both have the want to, or I hope we both have the want to tackle billionaires, the 1%, the 0.1%, the 0.0001%, because these people own most of the wealth. And the wealth gap has only been increasing. And that was one of the things that Donald Trump was kind of manipulating his base with, that he is going to go in there, drain the swamp of all the corrupt Democrats, quote unquote, which is obviously not true. And he's going to make America great for the people that endorse or want to accomplish the American dream. However, what has happened is he's started implementing policies that helped his friends. He started creating the very thing he accused that the Democrats had in government. He started being definitely more corrupt with like stuff with his meme coin and certain things that he sells. But the tariffs and the tax cuts, the money that the government is spending now that is for like not positive reasons. So he's cutting benefits for the poor. He's helping his friends and the rich. The exact thing that I assume MAGA wanted when they elected him at the very least the first time. That's not happening. I want to tackle the wealth gap. I want to, shrink it and put more hope into the majority of Americans. This presidency is doing the worst job at doing that I've ever seen in my life.
now we've forgotten about those entrepreneurs.
absolutely. I agree.
Well,
Tucker, what do you got on the short list?
I mean, I think housing is like the core of kind of everything. Where you live is like one of the central questions of your life. I don't.
Funny thing is, my recent podcast episode, go check it out. I speak with my great guest, Nick Hilaris. We speak about the homelessness problem. I'm not going to go over everything here. Depending on what Tucker says, I might give my input and some of the things we discuss.
I think it's actually about housing. It's about autonomy. Actually, both sides want to subvert it. The left is always talking about housing. The unhoused, as if the core problem with homelessness is we don't have enough, Section 8 high density buildings or something. It's nothing to do with that. And the right talks about it like even to address the question is to sort of buy into the Mamdani program. You're a socialist or something.
Yeah.
And no, I think the material condition of your people is like a really big deal and you should focus on it. It doesn't make you a socialist at all. I'm not a socialist, obviously. And then they go too far. Like, I don't think, building condos in Yellowstone either is the answer. We have way too many people in the country. So the top line numbers really matter. How many people live here? Well, we don't actually know the answer.
That's not true. We do not have a overpopulation problem in America at all. We actually need more people because, at the very least, when Joe Biden was president, people needed more workers, which is why immigrants were so important for that. With that said, we do need to build more homes. That's the big thing we need to accomplish, building more homes for people. How do we do that? That's the conversation. And that's what we discussed in my podcast episode, is that this can be implemented. But the thing is, not enough politicians are talking about it, one. And two, a lot of this stuff you would try to do more at the local level, but it gets kind of muddied because the people who own homes don't want these policies changing that can ruin the value of their home. And the other people who don't own home do not advocate as strong enough to push these policies and pressure their mayors, their governors, their senators to do more programs to increase the amount of homes in their area. I think there's an assumption that the president would do that. To be fair, Kamala Harris did say she was going to build more homes, but a lot of this needs to be done at the local level. And a lot of the advocacy for it is just not happening and it's not being talked about. So I think that is a big thing that we discussed in the podcast episode, which is very true.
Right.
Trump told me directly he thought it was 50 million. He's the president of the United States. He doesn't know how many people whose identities we don't really know live here.
To be fair, he doesn't know
weird
anything.
in the time of facial recognition. Like I have to have my nose scanned to get on an airplane, but like we don't know who's here. I call bullshit, but whatever, we don't know. But we do know that, and you know from traveling, that how many people a country has determines the nature of the country almost more than anything, right? I mean, this is kind of why like the places you go on vacation are not densely populated. So we need to articulate just like the obvious supply and demand principles out loud.
Don't we have more fundamental issues than that, though?
There's no more fundamental issue than who lives in your country, dude.
There is, right?
There is 100%. You're trying to kick people out of the country with no actual metrics, data, no outstanding theory that substantiates itself to prove a structure of like not only how to do it, but the impact of what will happen if you do it. This is all conjecture. This is all, I see brown people, I scared type of rhetoric. That's really all it is. Now, I'm with you in your homelessness point, but you're not attacking the idea of building homes, even though you made a good point about the right and the left. Instead, you're just saying, if we kick out more people, we'll have more homes. And that's just that's not how it works, because if you kick out more people, you also have less workers. So yeah, this is just not a good strategy.
Because if you want
The cost of prescription drugs?
no, but if you want the birth rates to go up,
I may have an answer to that, Mark.
thank you. What was the name of the place?
Costplusdrugs.com.
Smart man.
For your drug needs. I'm Cal Worthington. Yeah, sorry.
But if you can't afford to live here, you can't afford kids, right? If you can't afford healthcare,
Mark, let me ask you a question. What's your take on whether we should be sending money to Ukraine or not? Were you in favor of that?
Why Mark Cuban was about to go into a very important point. One of the things that the right advocates for a lot is the idea that we need more kids and we need better family structure in America. Now, it's a complex problem. It's not as simple as have more kids, because you can't pressure people to have more kids. But there's two things that could help, or there's one thing in particular that definitely will help incentivize people to have more kids. I'll say two things. More money and a home. Like that is two of the biggest things. And when you know that, when you realize that is the case, and you realize that I think in 2030 something, either 2030 or 2050. I don't remember the exact number. You guys can look it up. I'm not making this stuff up. Our birth rate is officially going to be less than our death rate. That means the population will start declining, which obviously is not a good thing. So Mark Cuban was about to tackle a very important point. And I don't know who this dude is. Probably some billionaire, but he's about to say something. He's just bringing something that's like irrelevant to the conversation that was being had.
Man, they need it.
I mean, honestly, I don't have a good answer. I can make an argument both ways, and half my family's Ukrainian from my grandparents. And so, personally, I think we should help, but I don't have a studied answer for you.
How much money have you sent to Ukraine?
None.
Oh, so what do you mean by we? You're the one whose family's from Ukraine. Like, why don't you send them $1 billion?
Because I'm trying to fix healthcare.
Why don't you fix their healthcare if you're like so deep? If you think we need to help, why don't you start?
That's a terrible point. That is just a terrible point. To be fair, Mark Cuban is in a better situation than most to send aid to Ukraine because he is a billionaire. So I mean, sending something there would probably, I guess, be okay. But like, I don't think that's how it works. If I'm imagining, a billionaire can't just send money to a country and it's get given to the government. I don't think that happens unless you're like that rich person's a part of the government. Like if you're a royalty in like a country, then you could probably send money to another government. I don't think an individual billionaire could. To be fair, you could argue he could donate money to a charity or an organization, which I guess is fair. I do believe in the concept of you being able to focus on more things than one, especially if you have a lot of money. But if it's not a pressing issue for you, like Ukraine, Russia, to be fair to Mark Cuban, he said that he doesn't know the answer. So if he doesn't know, why would he send money there? it's a it's not an unfair thing to say. I know Tucker's latch onto the idea that he's had family over there, so he feels something, but he just doesn't know what the best way to solve it is. So that's why it's not a focus. I think that's reasonable. Like if that's not a focus for you, then of course you're not going to put energy there.
About you first. I notice that's never like even an option for anybody. It's like, we need to help. That's not what charity is. Forcing other people to help is not charity.
Here's the
it's
good
vanity.
news. The good
Forcing other people to help. America doesn't force people to help. We have a relationship with Ukraine. That's why we have to help. And also we want to stop Russia. I forget. Sorry. I forgot. Tucker Carlson is a Russian shell. I forgot. He's a Russian agent. Of course, that's his answer. Of course.
news is all the weapons were on loan lease. We're getting it back. And our dear president, Trump, has negotiated that we own half the minerals. So he turned this horrible tragedy of a war into a profit center, which is one of his unique gifts. I think we can all agree.
Okay, I'm turning this shit off. I know exactly what this panel is. A bunch of billionaires who are benefiting for Donald Trump. I'll end the video in a second. But before I end the video, let me hear if Mark Cuban has one more response.
Can I just follow up on another alternative root cause, and I've harped on this a lot, federal spending. Ultimately, if the federal deficit remains as it is, 6.5% of GDP, we're printing money. The Federal Reserve has to buy all the treasuries to fund the government. That money printing and all of those inefficient programs for lending, for housing, lending for student loans, spending on stuff that has no ROI, et cetera, ultimately leads to inflation.
Just because it doesn't have an ROI doesn't mean that you shouldn't spend it. Like, I think I wonder how you would quantify, because I'm assuming that he might be referring to certain like benefits packages. I'm gonna stop saying like. He's referring to certain benefits package, certain welfare programs to help the underprivileged. And there's no guarantee return of investment, but you hope that by giving them money, they would make something of themselves. That's the hope. I don't know how you would quantify that necessarily, but he's probably referring to that. And then the return of investment, I do think there is something to it, but I do think there is a percentage where the return of investment is not required. Social Security, is there a return investment on spending for that? Because that takes a lot of our budget. The military, is there a return of investment? Maybe not monetarily, maybe authority-wise, there's the return. I do think that it's more nuanced than that. Government spending, I do think, needs to get curved a bit, though.
And leads to everything becoming unaffordable. Is it not an option, and how much do you both care about or think about reining in the federal spending and having those kind of pointed conversations about the importance of this? And
Go ahead, Tucker. You look like you're...
I mean, I think about it a lot. I think about the devaluation of the dollar. I think about it's just not worth as much. And I know that in my own, I'm not an investor. I don't invest in anything, but in the things that I buy with an eye to retaining value, they're physical things. I just don't believe in any of this at all. And so I caught myself the other day, and I'm at such a low sort of level compared to everyone else here. I'm not especially rich, but like I had a little bit of extra money, and I'm like, it really was like the Weimar impulse, like shit, I gotta buy something soon before
the dollar's worth less.
Yeah, I mean, everyone I know, and I live in a very rural area, and most of my friends are crazy, but people I know are thinking in terms of like land, gold, ammo. Right. Like I don't think that water. I don't think that's no. I mean, are you really laughing? Yeah. Or are you tittering nervously? Because you know that's not insane.
That's right.
So I own a shit ton of Bitcoin, first and foremost, right? It kind of a
One thing I'll give Tucker is that he's good at working a crowd. I'll give him that.
Edge, have probably 5 years now.
Yeah.
But we do need to cut costs, and I'm hoping AI is a path there. You know,
I have some crypto. I wish I had Bitcoin though, man. But I have crypto. I won't tell you because I don't give financial advice, but I do have crypto.
Government as a service, AI as a service, reducing the number of people it takes to get things done. Understanding that laws that were written in the 60s, and this is kind of the abundance thing, right? Laws that were written in the 60s that are still in place don't apply now. It's kind of like the government version of the innovator's dilemma.
I agree to that.
We have to modify things that are in place already so we can start to optimize. And I think we haven't done that in a long, long time. And I don't think we're in the process of changing that right now.
But may I ask, and I'm not against anything you said.
Especially with the current administration. That's why I said Mark Cuban has his hand on the pulse. I'm curious what he thinks about, because he can't, like, he disagrees with Trump. He thinks that Trump does negative things. That's why you brought up the tariff stuff. But there is a realization that Trump has so much power with him increasing his authoritarianism that he pressures businesses and he pressures billionaires now. So I wonder what he thinks about him truly. Like,
I mean, I'm for technocratic solutions to moral problems too, but I wonder, just kidding, I'm wondering what the aim is. It seems like with any project, like you begin by articulating your goal,
Right.
which is like one thing America's super bad at. So if you want to get to the moon, say so. And then if you don't get there, just fake it or whatever, like we did. But it begins with, again, kidding, but it begins with saying what the goal is. Like, what kind of society do you want?
Yeah.
No, but you never, I'm not attacking you at all. I do think you should send money to Ukraine, but I think we're all at fault. It's all like, well, how can we do this more efficiently? Well, do what? Like, in the end, I want to live in a society where people live in.
I think it's pretty clear what he said. He says use AI and other means and tools to optimize the level of efficiency. That the waste that people have can be optimized with technology and everything. That's what Doge was supposed to do. Now, I don't trust Doge to do it, and they were terrible when they did do it. And I don't trust the Trump administration to do it because they're only firing people because they're not loyalists. But in a actual good administration, they would use this technology and they would use these tools to optimize efficiency, and really look at certain holes in certain programs to see if they can, at the very least, either cut spending or improve spending to get that return. Like, there's different areas, and I got to cut out saying, like, there's different areas where you see a welfare program and maybe it's looking at this state in particular in the sector of IT. Let me just throw something out. And the kids there are just not getting optimized. They're not getting enough resources, but all of them have the best return on becoming, college students and being very successful. How they quantify that, I'm not sure. I'd be very curious because there's things in the government, of course, I don't even know. But that's just an example where there are things you can do where it means taking money or adding money, or it means cutting workers or adding workers, or it means changing a specific policy because it's not the most efficient policy that can be done. For example, public education needs a revamp 100%.
Single family homes with little lawns that they own, that are not going to be taken away from them, like actual property rights, not theoretical property. It's like my house, okay? I want married people, and I want them to have children and grandchildren with the rough assurance, the future, of course, being fundamentally unknown, but
you can't force people to have kids. Again, this is just blind, open-ended points. You talk about what is your goal? How are you going to do it? And then you say, I want people married. How are you going to force people to get married? That Tucker Carlson says things thinking that he is more correct than he actually is, and he just says his feelings, but there's really no substance behind his words oftentimes.
rough assurance that, like, it'll kind of be the same. Radical change all the time drives people insane.
Yeah, but it's not radical change to do.
It's not radical change. Dude, I grew up in.
It's an implementation. It should have been implemented gradually, but it's a implementation of increased efficiency. You don't have to radically change everything that you do. That's what's bad about what Doge and the Trump administration are doing. They are radically trying to change America. It's not radical change. Mark Cuban is not talking about radical change.
This city, I don't recognize it. I'm only 56. That's radical change.
What, you talking about Los Angeles?
Yeah. Like, what is this?
Look, you can go in any decade, any generation.
Rick Caruso says,
No, there's never been population.
Change.
Okay, then I dare you then, because I know you're a historian. Give me another example, other than the mass rape by the Mongols, of population change like what we've seen in the West over the past 50 years. You can't, because there isn't one in all recorded history. So you can be for it or against it, but you can't say.
So that's what Tucker Carlson's point. He just wants to get rid of all the people that are brown. I simplified it, but it's very clear that is his intention. He wants to get rid of these people are causing the problems. But when we look at all these situations when it comes to America, we've grown a lot. We've added so much to the economy. We've added so much to innovation. We've added so much into technology. Different voices. They weren't all just white Christian men, Tucker. They weren't. But I think in his theory, Jesus is white, Santa is white, every president should have been white, Barack Obama was a disaster, all that bullshit. Well, that's all I got. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like and subscribe. Take care. Peace.